Hi, everybody. Welcome. So good to see you. I was trying to do the montage for you. I got the video playing, but didn't hit the sound. So I was listening to the music. It was really fun. Thank you guys all so much for joining. It's so good to see you all. I am going to just please let us know where you are at. I always love to see where everyone is from. I enjoy the connection and also just reminding everyone where you're located because there might be a doula giver in your area. So welcome. Hey, Kelly from Los Angeles, Amy from North Carolina. Hello. Amy, are the Buddhist monks in your area? They're walking for peace, and I have a girlfriend that lives in North Carolina. That's something that I'd love to see. I don't know if they're going to be walking through your area. Amy from Wisconsin. Hey, Amy, it's good to see you. Anne, hello from Cape Cod. It's lovely to see you. And Amanda from Georgia. Good to see you. Okay, Amy says about 3 hours from here. That would be pretty amazing to see them. Jake's from New York City. Good to see you, Jake. Welcome. And Deborah. Um, Ann Arbor. Tell me Ann Arbor. Tell me where that's at again, Deborah. I can't remember. Ann Arbor. Let's see. Let me let everyone in. Cheryl from Portland. Hello, Cheryl. It's so good to see everybody. I am so excited that you are here tonight. Jennifer from New Jersey. Hello, Jennifer. It's good to see you. I see a couple more people are hopping in. Welcome. Oh my gosh. Can you believe we're already in the middle of January? My goodness. My goodness. It is. Um, I can't believe how quickly it's like I'm thinking, where did 2025 go? And we're well into 2026. So, welcome. This is our gathering for clinical hour. I just kind of wanted to just allow everyone to land here. I'm sure you've all had a busy day and just reminding us to just maybe take a breath. I'm so excited to see all of you. So I'm just going to have you land and just take a nice deep breath, and we'll just allow ourselves to be fully present as we come together in this beautiful space. I just want to say congratulations to each of you. You have already completed week one. I was so proud of you. I loved looking in the Facebook group and people are like, done, 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 done. I love it. I love it. I'm so proud of each of you. And also for those, that didn't quite get your homework done, there's still time to work on it. Really just being intentional about being in the space and this time is all about you. I just want to make sure that we're making good use of our time together. So, just a little kind of some information about what this time is for together. This is for clinical time together. So this hour is for everyone to hopefully you've had a chance to review at least module one. The homework for this week, if you've had a chance to go into your classroom, is to also go through modules 2 and 3. And if you haven't done that already, that's okay. We still have time, but this time is really just to work on the certification for end of life doula training. There's homework assigned to this training as well. So really, I'm just here to review the training, the CEOLD training, and then help answer any questions. So the first module that you guys studied last week, I know there's some that have already gone through the training. There are some that are brand new, so there are no questions. Um, so I want to, don't be shy about answering or asking questions. This is a time for all of us to learn. There's also the live case studies that I think are so important. We'll review a couple of those. But module one talked about the shock phase. Module two talked about the beautiful, lovely stabilization phase. And then module three talks about the transition phase. Kind of part one. Module four also covers the transition phase. So I wanted to check in with you all to see how your first week's assignment went with the end of life doula training, and then also about the homework. So there's also Remember, you're doing two tracks here. So you're building your business as you're completing your certification for your end of life doula training. So it's a lot of information that is coming in, but really being intentional about there's a lot of momentum that can be built in this time if we're intentional about how we're spending our time. So the first assignment, homework assignment, was to kind of, this one always kind of takes my breath away for the first module homework assignment. I just want to make sure, has everyone completed at least module one? Okay, I see. Okay, anyone here has not at least completed module one? Okay, and it's okay if you haven't. So great. Okay. So so yeah, excellent. So everybody has at least completed module one. So wanted to kind of reflect on completing module one, how that went, and then also wanting to be mindful about the homework. Now, the homework, it really, like I said, it kind of caused me to pause when I first did my doula training a few years ago. This really was a beautiful practice because when we actually put ourselves in the shoes of someone who has a terminal diagnosis, thinking about how we would feel if we were told, there's a phrase I love to use, when we're told that we have less time on this planet, time takes on a whole new meaning. And so really being mindful about taking a moment to step back into that space and really begin to process how would that make us feel if we were just told that we had a terminal diagnosis? So I'm hoping that each of you were able to take some time to write down how that made you feel. Um, Also, I love the reflective exercises about maybe sharing with the people that you love what you need most from the people that you love at that time. And then probably most important is what you would not need from those people at this time. Be open. Did anyone, I want to just kind of open that up to how was that exercise for you? I'll just share, I have a friend who has a cancer diagnosis, and then he also was diagnosed with ALS about 6 months ago. And I'm really learning how to navigate the conversation with him. And then, of course, it's different with him than it is with his wife. And I'm really learning what not to say mostly because they're very open, about sharing exactly what they need from my husband and I at this time. And so I just kind of wanted to ask one, how did the homework assignment went for you? Do you guys have any questions about the shock phase? Remember the shock phase and also those three important questions. So those three important questions. Let's put in the chat here. What are those three important questions that we ask each time we are with a client? Can you guys remember those three important questions? Um, those are really important for us to remember. Feel free to put in the chat, what are the three things that we look for at each visit? Excellent. Safety, acute. Yep. Are there any safety issues? Are there any acute issues? What are their support systems? Excellent, you guys. Great, great work. So I think when you first walk into the room, when you begin to assess the situation, acute issues, safety issues kind of go together. But, obviously, there is not a lot of work that can be done when someone is in so much pain. So acute issues would be pain, nausea, um, if they are just pain's probably the biggest one, and nausea, they're not going to be able to communicate with you very well. They're not going to be able to hear what you're trying to teach them. And so really being mindful about reading the room, right? So reading the room, where are they at? And then safety issue is another one of those big concerns too. Oftentimes I'll walk into the room and there's like someone has an oxygen tubing and it's just spread all the way across the floor and there's a potential for tripping and things like that, just making sure things are close by. Yeah, Kelly, go right ahead. Thank you for raising your hand. Go right ahead.
Thank you. I had a question on sort of what is the line between what you do and don't do. Like in the this was in the second case study, but like the woman was on Social Security. Like if you walk into a home and they don't have money or they don't have support, like is the assumption that they're like in hospice and there's already like a hospice infrastructure at this point that you're communicating with? Or is the assumption like you're going to take it on as the doula to figure out their life? Or like where in the other support available outside other than their community are these scenarios?
Perfect. So that's a great question. So the homework assignment is specifically for the end of life doula, but that role can also you can also use this scenario when you're working with someone in your elder care doula work. And so as an end of life doula, potentially most often we are asked to support people when they are already on hospice. And it's such a great question because honestly, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. And so typically, if someone has limited resources, the social worker should be like the first one to be notified on the hospice team. They probably already have an awareness about where that person is at in when they were admitted, because those are things that hospice look at when a person is being discharged from the hospital. The social worker, the discharge planner, typically has a plan in place for setting up that support system, but not always, right? So not always, and there might be just one caregiver, and that is what we see oftentimes.
And so do you get to the house by either working with the hospice community or being hired privately by the patient or their family?
Both,
Okay.
both actually. Yeah, to be honest with you, most of my referrals have been by word of mouth, or one of the things that you guys are working on this week is working on your community events. Like, I can't express to you enough the importance of getting out there as soon as possible to do your monthly events, because that is how I have been able to move the needle. That is how I have really been able to accelerate my practice, is getting out into my community. And so we all love hospice. There has been a little bit of there has been some time that need to take some time in developing the relationships, not only with the community members, but you also have to develop a relationship with the hospice companies. They have to get to know you. And so that's why one of the things as part of your certification, hopefully each of you at the end of module one, there is a requirement. Hopefully you all have seen that. The requirement for you to complete your certification is to have the 15 hours of bedside hours. So important. You can use your past experience, but after week 4 is when you would want to start beginning your bedside hours, because you'll be building your foundation. The first form, I guess it'll be quicker than that because you guys are already working on module 3. So by the time you complete module 4, you'll be ready to volunteer. Um, but I think the most important thing to remember is to go out into your community as soon as possible, because the your community needs to know that you're available, and what you're doing is building trust and building a relationship about the information that you have available to share, and people just have to know that you're there. So as far as your question, Kelly, about the elder care, so to be honest with you, I just had a client recently who was a solo ager and trying to find her. She had the financial means to have 24 hours support at her house, but she was declining so quickly by the time we were able to get things. Possibly in place. She had some confusion. She kept changing she kept changing her mind. And so it got very muddy as far as trying to get the correct support system in place for her. But um, it was a very difficult case because she on so many levels. So ideally, with your elder care certification, which you like, please do all the certifications as soon as possible when you're done with your end of life doula training, so that you can get out into the community sooner than later. I love the elder care training in particular because you can get out into the community way before someone needs you as an end of life doula. You've already developed trust, you've already developed a relationship with someone, and by the time they need you, you've already got everything in place. You've helped them with their advanced care planning, and it's just this beautiful transition. So building trust is um, the number one reason, um, to be able to support people. Like without trust, especially the expectation of having someone come into the end of life doula role, that's a very sacred place. And oftentimes people are waiting until too late to get onto hospice services. And so inviting a stranger into their home might be a little challenging for some people. So that's why we always encourage people to get out in the community, let people know that you're there so that, we've planted the seed. So when the time comes, you have already established a relationship with someone. So let's see. Deborah says your community may have PACE services, program of all-inclusive care for the elderly. You might be able to help if hospice isn't involved. Deborah, that's a great thought. So there are a lot of community resources. One of the things that Suzanne will talk about a lot in her training is creating a resource list. So when we start to develop our practice, when we start to um, work through our training, Suzanne talks a lot about getting out into your community and doing your community event, but also creating a resource list. And a lot of you have probably already been out in the community and have resources. So it's really important to begin to put those all those resources together because they will be your allies. It's so crazy. I never thought that the funeral home would be our ally. And they're our strongest ally here. They are such strong advocates and they refer people because they do pre-planning all the time with families. And so when people are beginning to decline, they make recommendations for doulas. And so um, they're Suzanne will talk about later power partners. You probably already have some power partners in mind. Maybe it's hospice companies, maybe it's home care agencies, maybe it's elder care attorneys. But start thinking about um, these possible allies that you'll have in um, your allies in your community. Yeah, Nicholas, thank you so much. She said we'll be starting to build your network resource list in week 5. So stay tuned for that. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. So let's stay with modules 1, 2, and 3. So for those that have maybe perhaps moved already forward into modules 2 and 3, we talked about the shock phase in module 1, and then module 2 was the stabilization phase. And I love that stage because that's where the magic happens. And that's where we can really work on, encouraging folks to record their story, tie up those loose ends. And then the transition phase. Suzanne does such a great job really helping to prepare us to recognize. And we're going to be able to recognize it much sooner potentially than the hospice because we're going to be there more often and we're going to be able to spend more time at the bedside. So Suzanne calling it, when we start observing changes in condition. And I think that that can help create for a much softer landing for folks when we can anticipate and be able to support them with tight symptom management so that we can be um, aware and being able to make some recommendations for care. So, any other questions? How are things going? How is that landing for all of you? This is your time, so don't be shy. Feel free to raise your hand. This is a small group, so you can just pop on. I think everybody has the ability to unmute. Hey, Cindy, it's good to see you. Hey, Marcia. Hi, Suzanne. It's good to see you all. Okay, so let's talk about so just pop you also just put hashtag question in the chat if you prefer to ask a question in the chat. I wanted to talk about the the uh the one of the one of the case studies. So one of the things that really hit home for me in one of the case studies, because this happens all the time. So, and I just had a person that I love dearly passed away. She had a cancer diagnosis. She's been working, treating her cancer for quite a while. And then out of the blue, she had some complications from the treatment that she had, and she passed away pretty suddenly. And so her husband still is in the shock phase, and why I don't, my heart just goes out to him because it is, you have a cancer diagnosis, treatment, kind of goes the ebbs and flows of going through treatment and feeling really poorly and then perking up. And just 3 months ago, she actually hiked. She just did a hike with a bunch of women to 11,000 feet. So it was a shock for her husband and family to have her pass away so quickly. So how do we hold space for people when they are in that shock phase? And to be honest with you, a lot of people, especially with the diagnosis of pancreatic cancer in particular, people can stay in that shock phase the entire time. So, what in the chat, or if you guys just want to answer out loud, so what would that look like if someone was in the shock phase? What would be something that you would be observing or looking out for if someone is in the shock phase? I think of denial. Um, what other emotions come up if you think about you have been just given a terminal diagnosis? What other emotions might you fear? Cheryl, very good. Anger. Anger is a big one. Like, oh my gosh, why is this happening? That's perfect. Fear, there's a lot of fear. It brings up a lot of, um, questions like, oh my gosh, I don't have much time, right? And so, you know, um, unfinished business. Like, oh my gosh, I thought I had more time. And so all of this stuff comes bubbling up to the surface. All these loose ends that we talk about. Yep. Kelly says withdrawal. Yep. Feeling numb. A lot of times people, their circle becomes much smaller, right? The things that they used to love to go to, going to the big game, it's like they no longer have interest in doing that. Anger. Yep, yep. Suzanne says mellows into grief. Yeah, very much. I think doing the homework exercise too, if we've been told that we have a terminal diagnosis, how would that make me feel? I think I would feel, I don't know, I wrote in my homework because I'm doing the homework with all of you too. I just want to let you know I'm doing all of this with all of you. It's such a good refresher and a reminder. But what I put in my homework is there's a song by Tim McGraw. Have you guys heard of Tim McGraw? I'm kind of dating myself because this is probably like the 2000s or something. But he talks about his dad, Tug McGraw, who was a famous baseball player, right? And so his dad, Tug, had a brain cancer, and so he writes about the song about if we're told that we have this limited amount of time, and he's like, man, if you are told you have this limited amount of time, what would you do? And he sings, I went skydiving, I went Rocky Mountain climbing, I went, just stuff like that. And I think about when we start putting ourselves in the place of our clients or, our loved ones, we have such limited amount of time on this planet, right? So it's such a beautiful reminder to just like let's get living, let's start living. And when we are working with people at the end of life, I feel like it is so life affirming. It's almost like breathing in a breath of fresh air. You can't help but be reminded about the sacredness and the the emotions and the importance of tying up those loose ends before we get to that point. So that's why it's really important for us. There's like this secrets. I don't know what Suzanne did, but there's just this special secret sauce that she's written into this program because as we continue to prepare to help support people at the end of life, the secret is that we're also preparing for our own end of life. And I think that as we begin to do this work together, there will be a lot of aha moments. So when we think about moving in from that shock phase, thinking about the scenario that I was talking about. So we have, I'll read it to you. So that the case one study, an 82-year-old man diagnosed with terminal cancer. He's been having chemo treatments for the last 9 months. He has a history of arthritis and high blood pressure. The man lives in a house with his wife, who is 78. They've been married for 48 years and have 2 children who live out of state. His wife has osteoporosis and cataracts. So you enter the house to find a man in a reclining chair sleeping in the living room, and you notice a cane next to the chair. His wife is at the kitchen table, her head is down, and she's a bit slumped over. You notice that there are dishes overflowing in the sink, and there are piles of unopened mail and paper scattered all over the kitchen table. So when answering the 3 questions, think of what questions you might ask this couple in order to be able to help them. So I really, this is real life. This is what's going to happen. You're going to walk into a home and you're going to notice there's going to be a lot going on in the house. So we talk about those 3 questions. So what pops out for you for that wife sitting on the table? What would be your first concern? So you have a man who's sitting comfortably in the chair, and then you have a wife that's really just not doing well at the table. What's your first thought when you walk into that house? Feel free to raise your hand or in the chat. What's the first thing that you guys could think about? Yep, Cheryl, perfect. Yep, yep, she needs the support. I have to say, a majority of my doula work is, of course, helping my client, focusing on my client. Always they are number one. But most of the work that you guys will discover is it's going to be with the family. And so really being mindful about the time that you're there, really begin to look at it because there's going to be the wife, there might be a child, there might be grandchildren. Um, you're going to have an ability to be able to have discernment on who needs the support first. I remember one of my clients, um, the husband seemed to be doing okay, but the sister that was visiting was just like, you could see her, she was just pacing around the floor. So I just took the sister out and we took a walk around the neighborhood. It's just really being able to use your intuition, read the room. That's going to be your superpower. Yep, yep. Um, Oh, Amy, yeah. Let's get living. Yeah. Um, wish people to do. Yep. It's such a powerful thing. Better start living. Y- Yeah. So anyone, how did that land for you? First thing about the wife. So how can we be of support with the wife? What would feel right for you guys helping the wife? What would be important for helping the wife? I feel like I've gotten up and helped with the dishes, asking, "Have you eaten today? Maybe I can make something for you." Yep, yep, perfect, Kelly. Do the dishes, call her family. Yep, she needs rest. Maybe, part of our work is we can provide respite care. Have you slept recently? Why don't you go ahead and take a nap or just go lay down? Do you want to go sit outside with a cup of tea? I'll hang out here and talk to your husband for a while. I think there's so many beautiful things that we can offer. Um, you know, I sometimes I think we feel like we have to be doing something, right? We're not human doings, we're human beings. And so oftentimes people just need the medicine of presence. And so really being mindful about how can we hold space for someone, you know, um, sometimes we can be, I know for me, I can be like the Tasmanian devil and just like keep busy, 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 busy. But really, sometimes the person just needs you to just be still and be present. Yep, helping her go through the mail, getting the help and support that, yep, yep, feeding her, absolutely. Food, have you drank anything? Have you eaten anything? And then, of course, with the husband, safety concerns with his cane, making sure that he needs some support. Um, and then, it didn't seem like there were any acute issues, but the number one thing was support and then safety issues, making sure that they're okay. There should never, never, never be just one caregiver, but that happens a majority of the time. So that's really where we come in being able to support people when we are at that stage. We can really be that extra layer of support for people. You can build your practice any way that you want, but making sure that you get rest too, because sometimes these cases can be pretty heavy. And so being able to have, ideally, it would be beautiful to have three people in that situation. So calling family members, they're in the on the Doula Givers website, and this will be later in your course too. But right now, today, you can go to the main Doula Givers website, and under free resources is the oh, darn it, the name is escaping me, but it is a planner, uh, a patient care planner, client scheduler, and so that will give you a little calendar of how you can plan caregivers and you, and kind of pencil everybody in, and I use it all the time. It's such a powerful tool to be able to schedule people in, and then everybody knows, okay, so I'm here 1 to 5, and mom's got the evenings or whatever. But I think it's really helpful, so that way the main caregiver can actually have scheduled time off. It's really important for them to have that scheduled time off. Yep. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Nicholas. He put it in the support system scheduler. Yeah. So there's all sorts of things that are available to help support you on the way. So let's talk about, no, let me pause. So any questions? So we're kind of working through module one. How has anyone done module two, module three yet? Deborah has. Okay. Oh, look at you guys go. Excellent. Okay. Two for Kelly. Okay. So Jake, how are you doing on yours? Are you on module two? Perfect. Okay, excellent. Great. Okay, great. So let's see. Amanda, are you on module two? Are you, are you working on module two? Is it okay to move on to module two for everybody? Okay, okay. So let's talk about module two, the transition phase. Beautiful, beautiful. So the transition phase, or no, sorry, stabilization phase. So stabilization phase is such a beautiful space. This my favorite part, because this is where the beautiful work begins. Once someone hopefully is out of that shock phase. My dad had metastatic lung cancer and he died within 54 days of diagnosis. We were in the shock phase, up, everyone was in the shock phase. I think that we finally were able to get him comfortable towards the end, and we were able to kind of ease into that the phase of not being in such big shock. But I feel like pretty much the majority, we were in the shock phase the whole time. There was nothing planned, nothing was in order, and it was a challenge. But looking back, I'm really grateful for the support that he had so that I could be present for him, which I think is really important, and such an important thing for family members to remember. The role of the doula is allowing the daughter to be the daughter, the husband to be the husband, the wife to be the wife, because there is a lot of strong emotions that are present during that time, especially when someone begins to enter that transition phase. So, the stabilization phase is when someone they're good, their pain is well managed, their nausea is under control, they are feeling pretty good, maybe they're sleeping pretty good. So you can invite people to come over. Um, you I love the legacy work. That's my favorite part. And so really begin to think about what it is that they would like to have with this limited amount of time. There was one client who asked me to put little sticky notes under each item that she wanted to give away. She had little baggies of jewelry with people's names. She put a sticky note under pictures, and she just had me kind of go through the house. And so after she passed away, there was no confusion on, where this item might land for someone. And so she was very thoughtful about that. Sometimes we don't have that time. Recording people's stories, that's my favorite thing. Oftentimes it doesn't have to be anything fancy at all. Oftentimes I'll just tell my loved ones, um, my clients and my loved ones and my family who are struggling with illness, I'll just ask a question and then just hit record on my phone. And then I just send it to family members. I think it doesn't have to be anything big, but I think um, having your client be able to share their story could be really powerful. There's StoryCorps, there is all sorts of recording. Someone just told me recently about a doll, or I think it's a bear, and they recorded the voice of their loved one, and then they put it inside the bear. So all they have to do is just hit the button on the bear and they hear, I love you so and so, or good night, I love you, or something sweet like that. So, I think that it can be a very powerful time. So what are your thoughts about the stabilization phase? Any questions about the stabilization phase? I think there's some um, beautiful things that can happen, but it's impossible to get all of this beautiful work done if their pain is not under control, their nausea is not under control. Even just, Suzanne talks a lot about, um, you know, even though this is not a medical training, you're having a medical training for the non-medical practitioners. So even as much as, if they're having difficulties urinating, or maybe they haven't had a bowel movement in several days, that's going to make someone really uncomfortable and not really have the energy, or they may not be comfortable to be able to sit down and do this amazing work. So tight symptom management, so important, but also just understanding that they may not have a lot of energy to do this type of work. So when you are um, making recommendations about what that might look for someone, maybe it's just sitting and writing letters for someone. One of my clients had they gave each other flowers for their anniversary each year, and so she had me for the first year after she passed away. She gave me some money to hold on to, and then I sent flowers to her husband on their anniversary and on his birthday. So I think it can be whatever they want it to look like, but asking open-ended questions about their life. Hit record on your phone and see if they want to talk about, maybe tying up some loose ends. In your homework, in your homework is something about forgiveness. Now, when we talk about forgiveness for like it is so, it's doing that forgiveness work is really challenging. There are some things that have happened um, that may seem unforgivable, but I would love for you guys to maybe take a moment to think about doing your homework in the spirit of what if the outcome was different, and thinking about what if that person who did harm were doing the best that they could at what they could at that time. And so your homework for module 2 is making a list of all the things and people that you need to give forgiveness to and for, and make a list of all the things that you would like to receive forgiveness for. That can be kind of heavy work. And again, there's the magic in healing Forgiveness will truly set you free. And so really beginning to work with your clients, is there any forgiveness work that can be done at this time? Cheryl says, I had 2 months of that time with my father. We had such an amazing time. Once he hit transition, he was out because of pain. Yep, yep, it does. It can go quickly. And Cheryl, that's such a great point, because as we begin to do this work in the stabilization phase, especially for, cancer patients, they're doing fine, they're doing fine, they're doing fine. And then the next day, they are heading into their transition phase. It can happen just like that. So we really need to be mindful about um, every day is just such a gift, and just remembering that it can change at any time. And that's why another thought is that it's really important to ask those 3 questions every single time. Is there any acute issues? How's their support system? How's their safety? Because eventually people will lose the ability to get out of bed. They'll lose the ability to swallow. So, those 3 questions, if you ask those 3 questions every single visit, you will be an excellent doula, because you will know eventually there's going to be a change in condition, and you will have a different scenario, and the focus will begin to change. So, not everybody is interested or willing to go into that forgiveness piece, but I always encourage people to maybe write letters if possible. Sometimes it's difficult to to do that work, but I think people might be willing if we talk about it. Go ahead, Jake. It's good to see you. Let me unmute you here. Oh, sorry. Let me unmute you.
Um, how how do you start to work into the topic of forgiveness with a client? I mean, I when I was I did this, I did the homework for it, but I was just thinking, I mean, if it were me and somebody asked me, "Who do you need to forgive?" I might take that as a little bit, I might be a little bit off put by it, um, because it seems a little bit I don't know, just I mean, how do you tactfully and smoothly and without ruffling any feathers, um I mean, after you've asked the person about their history and, tried to, like, diagnose some things where, there might be maybe with this I don't know, child or sibling or something like that, where there may be some toxicity, um I don't know. I get how in the past have you done this in your own practice?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Jake. By the time we work, yep, Suzanne, building trust, that's exactly it. You know, um, and that's it's so true. By the time you have these deep and meaningful conversations with your clients, you will find that you are going to become the secret keeper. You are going to be probably the person that people will, because you're coming from a place of there's non-judgment. You're the non-medical professional. Not everybody in hospice wants to talk to the chaplain for whatever reason. And so in my experience, I have found that I'm just coming in and I'm just holding space with people, and then all of a sudden it's like there's just truth serum. They just open up because you're coming in a non medical, you're just there to have conversations, and it will just happen organically. When I'm trying to force something, especially if a family member is like, they need to do this, and I'm like, nope, no, nope, 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 that's between them. And so if I come, you know, one of the things too, Jake, what I really try to do is I try to meet people where they are and not where I wish them to be. I will say this over and over and over again. You will hear Suzanne talk about this. You will hear this from senior doulas as well, that I have a plan of how I think how things should go. There might be things hidden so deep within a person that they may never get there, and we have to honor where they're at. And so when I begin to work with a person, in the beginning too, especially, we're all just kind of we're just getting to know one another. Hopefully, you'll have been able to get in there long before they have their end of life experience. And so it really is just visit after visit, just beginning to build trust with that person. Eventually, as I begin to work with people and perhaps recording their story, I use the word loose ends. Eventually I do ask them, is there any, if you could change anything in your life, is there anything that you wished for a different outcome? Is there anything that you would have changed? And oftentimes that opens up a conversation about different scenarios that they've had in their life. Always asking open-ended questions, you know, um, tell me more about that. Let's explore that a little deeper, perhaps. And then also being mindful about their body language. If they start getting wiggly or they start looking away, you can say to yourself, we can come back to that later or not. Oftentimes a lot of the forgiveness work is in writing. I had one client who actually wrote a letter, and the letter was not to be given to that person until after she passed away. And so, really, just being mindful about where people are, and there are there's so much suffering, that we really have to be able to honor where people are at. I remember taking care of a woman who was in Auschwitz, and she was there, I think she said, for 3 years, and she was um, at such peace. She had already done her work for forgiveness, and she was such an incredible teacher for me. Um, horrific things happened during that time in her life, and really being mindful about, I had judgment, the things that she was telling me, I had to check myself at the door, but I think opening the conversation of, is there something that you wished would have had a different outcome? Is there I do use that phrase, loose ends, um, because I think being mindful about, is there anything that you would like to say to someone? I oftentimes will say, if today was your last day, is there anybody that you would like to see or anyone that you would like to talk to? And what would that look like? How would that conversation go if that person were sitting here right in front of you? We do role play, you know, um, that I think helps to begin to get the conversation started. And you'll be so surprised, Jake, that really you will be that secret keeper, and you will be that trusted person that, like, I am so surprised over and over and over again, the things that are shared at the bedside. It's really a sacred place. And um, so, so just being mindful about going in without any expectations of, okay, everybody, it's just going to be a great, big, happy ending. That isn't the case for everybody. And so we just start out real gently and slowly in building that level of trust with someone. And you're just going to find that those conversations are just going to open up organically. My favorite saying too is, do not speak unless it is an improvement upon silence. So there's a real powerful space to be when we practice the pause. It really invites someone to kind of process what you're talking about, reflect, and then be able to talk about what they need to. Sometimes we don't have, sometimes we want to fill up the empty space, but there is a lot of power in that pause. So I think you'll do great, Jake. I hope that was helpful. Yeah, so Amy says you are objective. Some people don't want to share with their families, but they'll let it out in the non-family members. That's so true, Amy. It's so true. Um, for some, just being able to talk about their regrets, their perceived feelings is enough. Yep, that's perfect, Deborah. That's perfect. We're not there to fix, we're not there to fix it for them. We're just there to bear witness. You know, um, we could say that I'm sorry that happened to you. Um, yeah, Nicholas's legacy projects are also a wonderful exercise to conduct with clients as well, and sometimes this can help facilitate deeper conversations. It's absolutely true. Yeah, Cheryl, your hand's up. I love the beautiful trees in the background. Yes, it's beautiful. I've unmuted you. Here, let's see. Oh, wait. There we
There we
go.
go.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, 'cause I'm pretending I'm in Fiji. Um, it was interesting that you brought that up, Jake. I did years back, I did AIDS hospice work. And what it reminded me of, what your question reminded me of, were several of the elderly fathers that came in to speak to their children, or came at the end, they came at hospice. And it was the first time that several of them had seen their child in a very long time, and they didn't know what to do. A lot of it was generational, because these men were never raised in men aren't supposed to nurture. Men aren't supposed to know what to do. And so it's very hands off. And so I remember sitting in the kitchen at the AIDS house a couple times, and you just see this burden on these dads. And I asked one guy, we were finishing up a cup of tea, and I said, "Could you give me a hand with his son? And I need to just scoot him up or do something." And when we got done doing that, we came back in. He said, "That was really easy." He says, "Yeah." And so it was like all of a sudden I had like this crazy light bulb moment, where it was like, oh my gosh, it's a generational thing. These men don't know how to do anything kind of nurturing, caring. So a lot of times when you run into the people that are now in their 80s and 90s, that's of that old generation. I know a lot of like people that are in their 70s and 80s now are from a little bit more of the 60s crowd. And so just total night and day conversations. But it was so cool because that allowed me to give the dads permission to sit and read, or to maybe, if you would mind, could you maybe take this washcloth, and would you like to wipe him down for me? He'd probably feel a lot more comfortable with you doing it than with me. And of course, I'd been doing it for a couple weeks, but all of a sudden, this dad was able to help and do something. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, I think that's such a powerful reminder, Cheryl, about um, it's natural for us to be in that nurturing, caring state. It's an intuitive practice, but it isn't intuitive for family members. And so, especially when someone is getting close to the end, how do we fill up this space? They're no longer the active person, that we knew them to be. And so, especially when someone stops eating and drinking, or they're sleeping more, how do we fill this time? And just, nice hand rub, foot rub. Like sometimes it's like, rub their feet. I've never rubbed their feet before. It's
Mhm.
like, yes, let's do that. Now's the time. This might be your last opportunity. This might be the
Mhm.
last Tuesday that you have with your loved one. How do you wish to spend this time with your loved one? It's powerful, that powerful
Yeah.
gift of presence. Thank you, Cheryl.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I saw a lot of dads kind of wake up to, oh my gosh, I can help. But the big thing that I was trying to stress was the cultural difference between how we are and how our parents or even our grandparents um, were raised. The gender roles.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So true. Thanks, Cheryl, for that. So good. Kelly put in the chat, what is an example of a legacy project? So it can be whatever sounds good to them. I think I love the idea of recording someone's story. I use StoryCorp, and I just actually found an app called Leaf, and Leaf is an app that I just learned about that you can take recordings. It's a place where you can take um, recordings from different like audio, uh, videos from Snapchat, from Instagram, from all different areas, sources, and put it in one section, and then be able to allow people to add to it, and then also for people to have access to it. So a legacy project could be writing letters, um, um, you know, uh, recording someone's story. I think oftentimes people think of a legacy project as like putting some big statue in the middle of the town square, and, or putting some big bench somewhere with their name on it. That's beautiful. And of course it's all beautiful. But I think that when we think about doing legacy work, it can be just as simple as writing letters for their loved ones. I had a client who had a very large family, and she had um, wanted to be able to leave something for everyone. And so she found this book. She had a grandson that was pretty young, and so we spent a few time visits together taping pictures of she and her husband, and a little note that she typed up, and we spent time gluing it into a book. And then about 2 weeks before she passed, her husband mailed them out to their loved ones. And so it can be whatever they want it to be. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be expensive at all. um, there's some beautiful ways to record voices, and things like that can be really meaningful. And so we'll talk a lot about that in later on in the training as well. Um, there's some really powerful tools that we'll be able to share with you guys. Yeah. Oh, Deborah says for legacy projects for hospice patients, gives loads of examples um, for for people. It can just be so simple, but it can be so deeply meaningful for those left behind. So we've got a few more minutes. We got a couple more minutes left. So wanted to check in. Your homework for module 2 was about making your list. Um, and module 3 is to write a letter to someone that we would like to ask forgiveness from, and then write an additional letter to someone that you want to give forgiveness to. So, some very deep interpersonal work that we're doing these next couple of weeks. So, be sure and do that. Suzanne will be meeting with you guys later on this week to talk more about the business building portion, but want to make sure that we're all staying on track with doing our certified end of life doula training by the end of this week. Hopefully, you'll have completed modules 1, 2, and 3. Last minute questions. I want to make sure. Let's see. Yeah, thank you, Nicholas. Yeah, if you guys have any last minute questions, want to make sure and answer. So the module 3 is about the transition phase. So that is when someone begins to slow down eating and drinking. You'll start noticing a change in condition. They're sleeping more, they're eating less, and I think that's why I like the stabilization phase, because it can happen overnight. Someone can have a change of condition and then may have some missed opportunities for those last final goodbyes, for people when their loved one is awake or more conscious. So it's really important to be mindful about all we have is today, really, because things can change in the blink of an eye. All right, so how's it going? A lot of information was good. really want to support you guys in the Facebook group. If you have any questions, please put hashtag question in the Facebook group. Would love to see how you guys are doing. Make sure in the Facebook group to say that you're done. We want to cheer you on. Also support at Doula Givers, super responsive and answering your questions. Something comes up, let us know if we can be of support. You guys are off and running, right? Woohoo! We're in week 2. You are moving right along. I just want to say congratulations. You guys are doing amazing. I'm so proud of you. You guys are doing amazing. There's a lot of stuff that we cover, but by the end of this 90-day sprint, you guys are going to be certified and you are going to have your launch, your practice fully launched and ready to go. So one of the things too I want to mention is about the bedside hours. And so if you have any questions about your bedside hours, that'll be in module 1. Um, but if you have any questions specifically about those bedside hours, please let us know. We'll give you some suggestions, but that will be important to begin. If you are looking for a volunteer position, it does take a moment, longer than a moment sometimes, to get onboarded with hospice companies. So begin to search for the maybe a potential hospice company. Remember that if you have more than one option, be sure and interview them. Not only are they interviewing you, but you want to interview them to make sure that it's a good fit for you as well. So if you have any questions about that, we're happy to support you in that area. But there's plenty of opportunities for volunteering. And then, of course, if you have past experience, that's always helpful as well. Congratulations. Thanks for hanging out with me. Next week, I'm going to play the montage and there will be music. So thank you for being patient with me, and you guys have a great night, okay? All right. Well done, everybody. Good night.